All right, another podcast from the Michigan Institute of Athletics in Brighton, Michigan. It's going to be an awesome podcast today. I'm actually going to be interviewing a student that I had in the Reaching Higher program here at Brighton High School, and I can't wait to hear like the perspectives and insights from someone that's a generation after me. So right before we get into it, I want to shout out VetLife. VetLife is a 501c3 nonprofit company. It's a company of veterans for veterans. Every veteran faces difficulties when they transition from active duty back to civilian life, and VetLife is there to ease that transition. If you want to reach out to VetLife, you can do so through Instagram or Facebook, or check out their website at vetlifetoday.org. So without further ado, I want to introduce Janelle Rigel. Janelle, I gave a quick synopsis of who you are and how we met. You were a member of the Reaching Higher program through Brighton High School. But I want to start this podcast like I start all my podcasts. I want to take it all the way back, Where were you born and raised? What was your family dynamic like when you were young? What were the things that were influential to you or that you think kind of helped shape you into the person that you are today? And then we'll start to discuss some of the, impacts of reaching higher and your perspectives, et cetera.
My name's Janelle Rigel. I grew up in Brighton, Michigan. My family was always like super close. I have an older brother. My parents are still married. When I was 5, I started gymnastics, and I did that for about 12 years, which was like a huge part of my life. I spent my life in and out of the gym 24/7. I went to practice before school, 6 to 8 a.m. I didn't have a first hour when I was in middle school. So gymnastics was kind of like my second home. Like, I saw them more than I saw my family. And I think when I quit, that was kind of like a big part of why I quit, was because it was like my entire life. So it was like super hard for me to have kind of like a social life. Like, I had so many friends. I loved hanging out with them, but it was hard to hang out with them. It was hard to see my family a lot. And after COVID, that we spent six months doing Zooms. So we did conditioning on a Zoom call for 6 months, out of the gym, didn't have anything. And that year, I was a level 9, and that was my freshman year of high school. And it was pretty hard to do that during COVID. And when we got back into the gym, it was literally like we had to reteach ourselves, like the whole thing. And I think that that was also a huge part. Like, I think if COVID never happened, I think I might still be doing it. And that's like because like when I got into the gym, I had to like reteach myself a lot of things. I had to like get my body back into, because I practiced 5 hours a day, 4 hours a day for 5 days a week. And like going from not practicing to practicing again was a lot on my body. So my last year was my sophomore year of high school, and I was like debating on quitting before the season started. And my coach came up to me, and like they could tell by like the way I was acting, like my mental state was not where it needed to be. And I was going to be doing level 9 again because my year got cut short. And she told me that she can tell that like I'm over it. And she said that she wants me, if this is going to be my last year, she wants me to go out with a bang. So I decided I was going to stick it out for one more year to see if my mind changed. And I was the only person at my gym that was a level 9. And I ended up making it all the way to nationals, which is pretty big. I was the first girl to ever go to nationals in 13 years at my gym. And so that was like a pretty big accomplishment, and I was really proud of myself, but it still didn't change like how much like gymnastics was like my life, and like how I needed to kind of like, I knew I was done. Like, I knew like I had to move on. So after nationals, I put in my 2-week notice, and I was done. And honestly, I still like miss it a lot. Like, I still think about it a lot. But I definitely think it was like the right choice, considering like everything that was like I almost felt like gymnastics became a chore. And
All right, I have a lot that I want to ask you about because I didn't know any of these things. It's crazy we had that 8 week program together, and I knew that you had come from gymnastics, but I had no idea that you had been to nationals and your commitment level. And it sounds like it was your entire identity. Like you were Janelle, the gymnast, and your self worth and how you felt about yourself probably completely depended upon, each practice and how you were doing as a gymnast. And that is extremely hard, especially when you're young. What initially probably started as a passion became like you have a fear of failure all the time, especially as you climb higher and higher and higher. All of a sudden, now you have this expectation and you have these extreme pressures, and you're kind of looking at it like, I don't even know who I am outside of this. Looking back, it sounds like COVID was like a major red stop button. It like shocked everybody. You snapped awake to like, wait a second. And now all of a sudden the camaraderie is gone. You're not being forced to be in this location all the time. And it gives you time to like pause and think about your life. And it probably give you a lot of time to think about what you value and who you are. And probably you start asking a lot of those questions like, what am I outside of gymnastics? Because now that this is not there, who is Janelle? Looking back though, do you think there is a way that you could have been growing yourself as Janelle outside of gymnastics while still keeping that aspect to yourself? Because if you're a level 9 gymnast and you're going to nationals and you're the first person in that school program's history, I know that probably came with tremendous pressure, and that type of pressure breaks people over time, but it also means you had a certain gift. Because why were you at that level? You were the first person in 13 years that was doing that. You have a gift. When you have gifts in life, sometimes they come with burdens and they're difficult and it's a lot of weight to carry, and you're like, this isn't fair. Like, I don't want to have to do this. And you can put the weight down. But there might be a certain amount of greatness that comes with carrying that burden and being like, yeah, I can handle this. Looking back, do you think there's a way that you can, you could have maybe built yourself during that time with what you know now? Or was it just like, did your passion really turn to you just didn't want to do it anymore? Tell me more about that.
I don't know if it was like that I didn't really want to do it anymore. It was kind of like gymnastics is a very hard sport on your body and mind. Like, you have to be 100% in the sport to do it. Like, your mindset has to be somewhere, or you have like the chance of getting hurt. Like, that's how it is, because you're flipping your body around, you're pounding on it 24/7, and you have to be in it 100%. And I think after COVID, spending 6 months out of the gym, I got to know myself not doing gymnastics, not being in the gym, not being able to hang out with my friends and not have to leave and be like, I have to go to practice. And I think, like, when I look at it, I didn't see myself doing college gymnastics. I knew I could get there, but I couldn't see myself doing 4 more years after high school. Like, I never got seriously injured, but my body was tired. My body ached 24/7, like, I was tired. And
Do you think your mind was tired of it too?
yes. Yeah. I
One of the parts you had said earlier was that when I was gone for that 6 months, like my skills and everything weren't sharp. And I was sitting here thinking to myself, like, yeah, they might go down a little bit, but I bet you it was more of your mind that was struggling to push yourself to be the exact same woman you were before. And then if you start comparing yourself to where you once were to what you are now, like, that is a losing battle. That takes you into depression. That takes you into like, oh my God, I've made this huge step back. I've lost all this progress. I bet you it was more of like your mind wasn't where you needed it to be able to perform the way that you wanted to, which then weighs on you even heavier. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I have definitely always been the person to compare, like, who I was versus who I am now. And I think, like, my season being cut short my freshman year was, like, super hard because I knew I was going to do good. Like, I knew I was going to do good that year. And then I came back, and I wasn't as good as I was. And I was always super hard on myself. My coaches were hard on me, but in a good way. Like, they wanted me to be the best gymnast I could be. And every time I had a bad practice, I would completely get down on myself, and the whole practice would go down from there. Like, it was very hard for me to pick myself up after it was down. So I think my mind and my body were both very tired, and I think I knew when it was time to be done.
When you were little, did you have a dream of doing gymnastics in college or maybe the Olympics one day? And if so, when did that change?
I had up until I'd say probably freshman year, 8th grade or freshman year, I wanted to do college gymnastics 100%. And that has always been what I said. I made an Instagram for gymnastics for college recruiters. I made a YouTube channel. I was ready. I wanted to do it. But between that year and a half, something changed. And I know it was mentally. I know it was physically. I know it was everything that went into it. But yes, I did want to do college gymnastics very much.
So if you had a time machine and we could go back and COVID never happens, you never get that break, do you think the Janelle that would sit here today would be telling me, I have an Instagram, I have a YouTube channel, I'm going to do gymnastics in college? Do you think that would have still happened, or do you think you were going to find out sometime, somehow, that you needed to step away and take a break? COVID disappears. We go back in time, it's gone. That event never takes place. You crush your freshman year. You have a killer year. You have a great sophomore year. Do you stick with gymnastics?
Yes. Yeah, I think I do. After my sophomore year of going to nationals.
Yeah, tell me about nationals.
So first you go through states, and you have to get a certain all-around to get into regionals. And then regionals, you have to place top 8 in your age group out of everyone there to go to nationals. So that was actually, my my 8th grade year, I was also a level 9. And I went to nationals as an alternate. So I didn't compete, but I was, I placed 9th. So I still got to go in case a girl got injured, but the sophomore year was the year I actually competed. And
when you went to nationals, did you feel like you belonged there? Did you look around and say, I can be as good or better than these women? Or what was the experience like when did you doubt yourself when you were at nationals? You knew you were good enough on the state level, but when you went to that level, it was different? Tell me about that.
A part of me knew I was done after this year. So the whole year, I was like, this is my year to have fun. This is my year. And I think that's honestly why I did so good, which was because I wasn't in my head so much. I was like, this year is the year I need to show that this was my sport I've done my whole life. So I think I was having fun. It was a fun year for me. And nationals, meeting new people, being on a Region 5 team with those girls, it was a good time because I wasn't comparing myself to those girls. I was having fun.
That makes sense. So you said during COVID and when you took a step back from gymnastics that you found yourself, that you found out who you were outside of gymnastics. What did you find?
So I was always I needed everything to be perfect. And when it wasn't perfect, my mind would spiral. And I've come to learn that, my dad has always told me that, don't, try and stress on things that you can't control. And, I have heard that, throughout my entire life. My coaches, my parents, everyone that knows me knows I stress so much. I stress about everything I cannot control. And I think once I quit gymnastics, it was, my time to finally focus on myself and my well-being. And I think it was finally time that that I allowed myself to be able to understand who I was. And
did you journal during this point? Did you write things down? Was it just time with friends? Was your interactions different with your family? Did your stress levels change? Talk about the actual changes that you experienced that you can see now once you put your foot on the brakes a little bit.
Definitely, I got more time with my friends. and family. And like I said, I was at the gym more than I was with my family because I went straight from school to the gym. So I never really saw my family besides at night. I never ate dinner with my family. I came home and I ate what was left. And so I definitely think being able to be home with my family was definitely something that I needed. And being able to kind of like let loose as like a high schooler and hang out with my friends, like it felt like I was kind of always trapped in like a bubble. I was like stuck as the same routine every day. Like it was school then gym. But once I got out, it was like I went to school and then I could have my free time. I could finally focus on myself, hang out with friends, hang out with family. And the stress level, gymnastics caused probably the most stress I've ever had in my life. And I always like I had a book, a calm book that I used to read. My mom got me because before meets I used to get like super bad stomach aches. My hands would start sweating. Like it was like a lot of stress. And I think once I got out, that stress like finally disappeared. Like I wasn't like super anxious all the time. Like I wasn't sweating. I wasn't having stomach problems because like I wasn't stressing about gymnastics. I wasn't stressing about having to compete tomorrow. And it was just a lot easier on myself in my mind.
Do you think, though, that you're a much better and stronger person from having gone through what you did with gymnastics? Do you think gymnastics has set you up to live a much better life because you've had to deal with tremendous pressure, expectations? What you're describing is fight or flight. What you're describing is that biological feeling consumes people when they perceive danger. And the idea of failing in competition, your body perceives that the same as a tiger in the bush. Like that's fight or flight. Your brain is going like, oh my God, you feel shallow of breath. And it's physiological changes. And people that are not athletes don't really understand how extreme it can get when, the pressure of your not letting your team down, not letting others down, living up to your expectations. Like, most of my best athletes are just like you in that way, that they're almost perfectionists. They're extreme. They don't want to do something 95% great, and they don't want to accept that it might take another 6 weeks to get it perfect. They want to be perfect like right now. Do you think that you're a much stronger person having gone through what you did with gymnastics? Do you think you're better because you fought that stress for a long period?
Yeah, I do. I think that the stress that gymnastics put on me allowed me to be able to handle my stress a lot better because my freshman year I started going to therapy for stress and anxiety. And once COVID hit, like we couldn't do therapy anymore. But she used to tell me all the time that like I used to talk about gymnastics all the time, and she used to tell me that like that seems like one of the biggest things that is causing your stress. And I think that once I got out of gymnastics, that is like what shaped me into the person I am today. Like my coaches were like my second family. I grew up with them since I was 5, and I do believe that they shaped me into like the person I am today. And I do believe that gymnastics shaped me into the person I am today. And no matter how hard it got, like towards the end, like I would never take back anything that I did.
So you value those times in your life. So when you start to step away from gymnastics, people in this life are better with a goal, with a focus, with a destination in their mind that they're chasing. Like when you have something that you're working towards, you're much better because it's like a GPS. If you start to get off course, you can quickly identify that you're getting off course and you're making the wrong decisions, and the wrong decisions just lead you to a destination that you don't want to be a part of. So when you had gymnastics or the performance or, the practice or the meet, whatever it was as the goal, or maybe just the level of gymnast you were trying to become, that drove you, that kept you in line to becoming the best Janelle that you could be. What is the new thing? What is the new dream? What is the new focus? I know you're about to go to college, Grand Valley State University. You're about to go to college. But what is the new driving force that keeps you on track? Like, what's the vision now? What do you want to be, when you grow up, when you get out of college? Like, what is the thing that is going to help bring out the best in you? Because although your therapist isn't wrong, the stress in your life was coming from how hard you were pushing yourself. But by pushing yourself that far and that hard, that's why you're the person that you are. That's why you're as strong as you are. That a life with stress is better than a life without stress, as weird as that is. And you'll learn that as you get older. what's the new destination that you're seeking?
Like, are you asking, like, what am I going to do, like, after college? Like, what's making me,
Yeah,
do
like
this?
no, just in a perfect world, what does your life look like in 5 years or 10 years? Like, what are the goals now? Because before it was the college gymnastics, like you had a destination you were chasing. Now you got to wipe the slate clean. You brought out a brand new white canvas, and I said, hey, you can paint fresh. What does it look like that you're trying to accomplish? Like, what do you want out of this life?
So it took me a long time to decide what I wanted to go to college for, and honestly, I'm still not 100% sure. But as of right now, I am majoring in allied health sciences, and I'm going to do 4 years of that, and then I'm going to try and get my doctorate of physical therapy to become a physical therapist. But we'll see how the 4 years goes. And
100%. So you're going to do like the gen eds, the basic things, but you think right now you're kind of looking at like physical therapy. You know, it sounds like you might work with athletes because you have an athletic background. It could come full circle. Watch, you're working for gymnasts. You know, what pulled you towards that path, or how did that doorway open?
gymnastics. I was in physical therapy like quite a bit because of gymnastics and because of like my body. And like I said, I never got like super hurt, but I did have like my body aches and like the small injuries. So I was in physical therapy a lot, and my parents have always been like, I could see you as a physical therapist. Like I could see you helping athletes. Cause you know what it's like. You know what it's like to feel that pain and be an athlete and want to get better so you can go back to your sport. And so I think that is honestly what drove me to want to become a physical therapist was gymnastics, and just like being an athlete and knowing how athlete minds work, and like being able to like compare myself to how I was and how they are, and like be able to help them.
100%. They'll be relatable. Like you can look at them and understand the struggle. And being an athlete and being injured is like the worst thing in the world. Like if you can't do what you love to do, we have a girl in the gym right now. Her name is Fallon Johnson. She's one of my undefeated amateurs, and she's training for this big upcoming fight. And she's had to work through an injury this camp. And just I've witnessed the mental struggles. Like she's been on a roller coaster because she wants to be able to train the way that she needs to be able to train to prepare for another undefeated opponent who's really tough. And like, you know, when your body needs its rest, it just needs its rest. It is what it is. And it's like a tormenting thing to someone that's like, you know, probably driven like you. She wants to be perfect in what she does. So it's like haunting her when she's unable. And it's like to have people in your life that can help that process. That's someone you'll value. You probably value all the coaches and the physical therapists and stuff you had over the years. Are there any things that really stand out before we turn the chapter off gymnastics? Are there any lessons, moments, events, specific times in your athletic career that stand out to you, or people, or, you know, phrases that were said to you that you still think are a large part of how you live today, how you think today, anything like that? A lot of times coaches really, you know, they have a tremendous impact on people, and they impact them way more than they realize. Was there a couple people like that for you in your story?
Yeah, so I had 3 main coaches. Well, I have had a lot of coaches over the years, but I had 3 main coaches for like my last like 5 years or 6 years, I'd say. And Coach Billy was my bars and vault coach, and Coach Michelle was my beam coach, and Coach Melissa was my floor coach. And to start off with Coach Melissa, she has been there since I was 5. And Coach Billy was there too, but he had left to go to a different gym, and then he came back. But Coach Melissa was always like the person that it's like, there are other things going on in your life, and it's like, she always told me how it's not as easy as everyone makes it seem to kind of like leave that stuff out of the gym, because like there were other people that told me like, when you're in gymnastics, you need to focus on gymnastics and not everything outside of gymnastics. But it's not that easy. Like it's not as easy as people make it seem to just forget everything else and just focus on the thing you're doing. And so I think being able to talk to her and like know that she saw me struggling, like she saw when I wasn't in the right mindset, she knew, and she was always the person to come up to me, have a conversation with me, and get me like on my feet again and get me like going on the right track again. Because when you're there for 4 hours, you want to make the most of it, because you're there for 4 hours. You can't do anything about it. You have to be there. And
Is that a standard practice? 4 hours?
yeah, we practiced 5 days a week for 4 hours.
Oh my God. I that isn't man, that almost feels counterproductive because you can only just push yourself and take in so much at once. 4 hours, 5 days a week. I don't know how that doesn't grind people to dust, or maybe it does. Maybe the fall off rate once you get to that level is extremely high. My professional athletes that like fight in the UFC or things like that, I would not want them training 4 hours at night, 5 days a week. I would be like, no, go rest, go journal, go for a walk outside, eat good food, get good sleep. Like these are all important things. I cannot believe that was your routine. I would have thought 2 hours, 2.5, 3 tops. That, especially being young. Like when you're older, if life's beat you around a little bit and you really see, it's either this or I have to sacrifice and I can have this. I feel like you're willing to go a little bit more all in. Taking a 16-year-old kid and telling him you got to be in a spot for 4 hours doing this thing, I don't know how they don't have like an insane drop-off rate when they get to that level. I had no idea.
Another thing that kind of got me thinking when you said like something about like you want your athletes to go eat and go rest and stuff like that, it was also very hard like to keep up with my eating. I have always been like super tiny and super small, and even like compared to like the rest of the gymnasts, like I was always super small, and like practicing that much was like super hard trying to keep up with my eating. And I even like went to the doctors and like they weighed me and they said I was like too small, like I was too skinny, so they put me on this protein drink. And it was like, it's hard waking up and going to school, and then like I get out of school, like when I was like in elementary school, middle school, you don't get out of school till like 3:30, and my practice starts at 4:30. So like it doesn't give you a lot of time, and like yeah, you eat lunch at school, but like that's not food. That's not real food. Like that's not the food I need to be eating when I'm working out and practicing 24 hours a week. And and then like coming home, like I wouldn't eat dinner with my family, so it'd just be like the dinner that was like left. And I feel like I've always had like a lot of trouble with like my eating habits and like trying to keep up with eating and finding time to eat. And I don't know, just like got me thinking that like you like want your athletes like to go eat and go rest, but it wasn't like that easy for me, because like when I tried to find time, like there wasn't time, or like I wouldn't, like I was young, I couldn't go and drive and get food, like I had to find what was at home. And my dad has always told me like, you got to eat the protein, you got to eat the right food, but I'm like, I don't know what to make myself. I don't know how to make myself. I can't go and drive. Like, I couldn't at the time. And, yeah, it was just, like, hard to...
So I bet you right below the surface, there was a ton of struggle that was going on throughout the story, but you were probably, I'm picturing that you were just this driven gymnast that was going there, you're crushing it, you're putting high expectations on yourself, but your family probably sees like, man, our daughter's a rock star. So they're not really thinking about the difficulties of these type of things, because that makes perfect sense to me, where it's like, when I'm hearing your story, I'm going, when you said 4 hours of training 5 days a week, I'm like, I don't know how she kept her sanity for that period, because unless you have, let's say if we could go in a time machine, you could go back and show that kind of pain and difficulty to your parents. Maybe your mom would help you meal prep. Maybe your dad would be like, you know what, with how committed you are and the fact that you want to do gymnastics in college, like we're going to get you a nutritionist and we're going to get your meals figured out and you're going to learn this, and like we're going to make sure you're getting adequate sleep, and maybe you need a tutor for some of your work, a school, so that's not overwhelming because you have all those obligations too. Then maybe it changes your course again. Maybe you do still do gymnastics in college, but it's like you're this young girl trying to figure out the world, trying to figure out who you are while juggling something that I would not put my pros through. I will kick my athletes out of the gym for a week if I think if they're pushing themselves too much mentally and physically. I will tell them, you can't come in next week. Enjoy the week off. And they're like, what am I going to do? I'm like, I don't know. Go out in the sunshine, spend time with your friends, play video games, like do something for you, but don't train, because you're getting to a point where if you hold the gas to the floor for too long, the engine is going to blow up. And it's like, as soon as you tried to talk about that, you got emotional because there was an extreme struggle that you were juggling without the answers for how to solve that problem. It's like anyone that's listening to that. Imagine you have to go sit in school for 8 hours a day. You get a tiny little crappy school lunch that is not what you need to be eating if you're an athlete. You're going to have a 1 hour window where from the moment you get out, you then have to transport yourself to this location. You're running around. It's like a whirlwind. You have to adequately fuel yourself, but in a way that it's not so much that you can't train accurately. You're going to do that for 4 hours. And then right before bed, you have to find a way to get enough fuel to heal so that you can do it all over again. That is it's insane that you kept it up for that long. And knowing what you know now, maybe just some conversations with loved ones, because, I briefly met your parents at the Reaching Higher graduation, and they seemed like incredibly supportive and so proud of you, but maybe they didn't realize how much struggle you were actually going through. And maybe you being like, Mom, I need help where we got to learn nutrition together, or I got to start prepping my meals at night. Would you be willing to cook a bunch of extra dinner, and I can box them up and I can take one with me to lunch so I can get the food that I need? Or, maybe that could change the course. But those are things that I think it's really good that you talked about that, because a lot of people don't see those type of struggles for an athlete. They think the only hard part is training. It's no. You got to eat right. You got to sleep right. Your relationships got to be right. If you're around the wrong group of people, that'll tear your, spirit apart. Because like you said, you can't just flip a switch in your brain. You walk in the front door and you just go my problems don't matter. Mm-hmm. Yes, they do. I can tell the quality of my fighter's life by how their emotions are regulated during difficulty in practice. I can literally see by how they're having emotional reactions if they're struggling in life or not. Because, of course it matters. It's going to weigh on you more. Your patience is going to be shorter. You're going to take your failures so much more to heart. So this has been an incredible story so far. I want to shift to, I'm old. I'm comparison to you. I'm 35. So I grew up in a whole different world than you. The internet was kind of just coming around. When we were growing up, everybody just kind of met in a location to get together. Their, phones were big boxes that were attached to the wall. And with that being said, I don't really think that my generation understands how different your world is, because with the invention of social media and the fact that everybody is so connected and peering into each other's lives and then comparing themselves with what they're told success looks like. If you don't have, 100,000 followers and a, blue check mark, and, you're not this, that, and the other thing, or you don't look this way, or whatever it is, that then you're nothing. Building self-worth in a world like this has to be way different. Talk a little bit about what the high school experience at Brighton High School was like, for someone that graduated in your class. Was it overall a positive experience? Was there negatives that maybe I wouldn't even think about? How were the social dynamics? Just things like that. What are the hardships about the world growing up now as a kid? And what are the things that you think, these are things that actually are pretty good? Just kind of feel free to talk about any of that.
I definitely think social media is one of the biggest differences between your generation and our generation growing up in high school, because as a teenage girl, comparing yourself to models on Instagram, girls with 1 million followers, actresses, all this stuff, that is very hard. But I think what a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of stuff on social media is fake. People don't really look like that in real life. There's so many apps that you can change the way you look, clear your skin, there's so much stuff, even TikTok. There's filters that you can make yourself look tanner and everything. But it's not real. And I think as me, when I was a freshman, I was, I said, I was super tiny. I was still 4 foot something. I was tiny. I was skinny. I was probably the smallest person in my class. And looking at the senior girls, I was holy cow, those girls are so pretty. That's crazy. And it always I think I would definitely say that comparing is I can't really speak on how your generation was with the comparing and everything. I guarantee there was comparing, but not the comparing on social media. And with social media, it's like that's everyone's way of like communication now. It's like that's like you don't like go like meet up with someone to just like talk to them. Like you talk on social media and figure out plans. Like you don't like I there's a part of me that loves social media just because it's social media. Like everyone loves TikTok. Everyone loves scrolling on TikTok and seeing everything. Then there's a part of me that's like, I wish I knew what it was like to grow up without social media. Because I feel like things would be like so different. And like also like another thing with like breakups or rumors being started. Like breakups are really hard because like you can literally stalk their social media and be like, oh, like, what is this person doing and all this stuff? Or you can, like, stress about, like, a bunch of stuff that they're doing. And, like, rumors being started, like, I think social media is one of the biggest way that rumors are started because of, like, Snapchat, texting, and, like, no one actually knows what is going on because you're just texting about it. Like, it's not going on in person. It's going on through social media. But I also think that social media is, like, a great way for people to connect. Like, I definitely think that there are positives to social media. And, like, connecting and, like, finding your community with people is, like, a super big thing with social media because, like, you can look up pretty much anything and find the answers to it. And I think, like, that has helped our generation. Especially, my parents are always like, school is so much easier for you guys because you guys have all this technology and everything, and you guys have social media to look up answers with. I'm like, that's fair. like we do. Like I think social media and like apps and stuff like that has definitely made life easier in a way, but has also made life a lot harder in a lot of different ways.
100%. Because just because the information is out there doesn't mean that it's accurate either. You have 1 million things you have to decipher through to determine what you believe to be accurate, correct, the right reality, the right group. Like, we didn't have all that. We would just go to a textbook. We just like flip open our book and be like, well, the teacher said the answer's in this chapter, so this must be the answer. It's like, there are positives and negatives for sure. And the connectivity is both. You were just speaking on the duality because like back in the day, a lot of the things that people thought they kept in their head. Like you just said, a breakup. You then have to watch every person that likes a certain status, every person that comments on that and says something hateful about you. Good. That girl sucked anyway. Mm-hmm. And like your brain has to see this over and over and over. And it gives a space for people. Like when people are right in front of your face, even assholes are like, they're just not as brutal to one another because like you're in person. Like people, even if they don't feel a certain way about you, they tend to keep it to themselves. Mm-hmm. So when we were growing up, if they didn't like you, they would just, nah. Now it's everyone has a platform to speak whatever they want to say with no filter from the safety of their bedroom, where they can just be like, forget that girl. She's da-da-da-da-da. Like, and it just makes the world a little bit more venomous is what it is. It just makes people like keyboard warriors. Like, in person, they probably wouldn't have half the character necessary to say some of the things that they say online. They wouldn't have the courage to be who they are on the internet, but they're willing to be it like that. Well, the problem is everybody sees it, and you're being judged in every single thing you do, every life event going on. Oh my God, did you hear what happened with Janelle? Did you see that on social? Did you see it on Snapchat? It's just, that's a mess. You know what I mean? Like I remember, not to throw any specific names out there, but I remember like in high school, like a girl had a picture spread around of her and through text, and it was like destroyed this girl. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And like that stuff happens all the time. I've never downloaded Snapchat. To this day, I refuse to get Snapchat. I'm like, people shouldn't be able to send me a message that just disappears. That's just asking for problems. Why even put myself in that situation? If you want to message me, text me or like message me on Facebook. You know what I mean? But it's like there's just such an ability for the things to turn wrong so quickly that, you guys have a lot of different struggles to juggle with that. So let's shift the chapter a little bit more. You're in high school. You're kind of making your way through the world. You have your struggles. You step away from gymnastics. You guys go through COVID, which like COVID was insane for me. And I'm at the time, a 32-year-old guy, like, what the is going on? And I'm trying to figure out my business and all these things and decipher through information I would never look at in my life. Like, I would never be on the CDC website ever. You know what I mean? And you guys had to live through that in high school. What were you like before Reaching Higher? And then how did Reaching Higher make an impact on you? And because it's a program where, for the people that don't know, instead of your normal routine, like you had with gymnastics, where you were just going through a cycle, all of a sudden for 2 hours out of your day, you're out of your classes and you have these outsiders, these like adults and mentors and these instructors giving you information that you might already have, but giving you some new perspective. You're having to walk up in front of the room and speak. You're having to open up to people that might be strangers to you. So it's like it's a foreign experience. What was it? What were you like before? How did Reaching Higher impact you? And then we'll start to unfold it from there.
So like I said, I have always been a perfectionist, and I did not know how to handle like stress or how to deal with life. Like I didn't know how to keep myself moving, or I didn't like plan my future out like the way I needed to. And like you said, Reaching Higher, like you go into this room of 30 people and it's like 5 mentors that you don't know. There's 28 other kids that you have no idea who they are. Maybe you do from school, but there were also only 2 seniors in that class and the rest were younger kids, so I didn't really know who they were. Like I had no idea who I was about to talk to. And like I think that was probably the best way for me to be able to share like the person I was, is because I didn't know them, but I got to know them. And like listening to everyone else's stories, like I was always the crier. I was always the one that like felt the way that they were talking, like it like hit me. And I think being able to be so comfortable around that group of people really helped me like figure out kind of who I was and figure out like the kind of person I want to be, because there's so many things that people go through that you have no idea. Like the amount of stories that I heard that like I could look at them and I would never think that they were going through that just because of a smile on their face. And I think it's just crazy that that's like how people like, they have this perspective on you, but they have no idea who you are. Like they truly don't. And after Reaching Higher, I think that was kind of something that I needed to realize, is like I always like had a thought of people, like the way I look at them, like I always like thought I knew who they were just because of like what they post on social media, like what you hear in the hallways, but like that's not who they are. You have no idea who they are unless like you're like super close with them. But I think Reaching Higher like kind of made me realize that just because like a person is like smiling and happy, you have no idea like what they could actually be going through. And like I said, I was a perfectionist. I still am. Like I still love things to like go my way, but I think I've like begin to realize that not everything is going to go my way, and no matter what happens, life is going to keep moving forward. Like things still keep going. Just because like one bad thing happened, it does not mean that the next day's not going to be good. And I think that was super big on me. Like we did 8 weeks of this program, and each week was something different. And I think being able to be like my true self allowed me to kind of figure out the person like I wanted to be, just because of these 30 people that were in the room. Like I don't think I've ever been so comfortable speaking in front of people. Like the first week, the first thing I said was I hate talking in front of people. I hate it. I get so much stress, anxiety. I care so much about what they think of me. I care so much about messing up. And as the weeks kept going, I got better, because like the amount of times you guys told me that I'm going to mess up, but you just have to keep going. So I think like I can't even like begin to like express how Reaching Higher has affected me, because there's so many different things that it did. And Yeah.
That's how you ended up in my group, actually, is, I don't know if you know this, but like at the end of the first session, there's like a draft. Basically, like all the kids are on a list and each mentor goes around and like basically says which kids they think they should mentor and why. And as soon as we got to you, I said I should be her mentor because she's afraid of public speaking. The first thing that she said up there, and you could see it, you almost got teary eyed because you were so terrified of being in front of people and speaking. And it's like, one gift that I have is a speaking ability and the ability to impact people and like do things like this. Well, it's because I'm in alignment. I know who I am. I know what I believe. I know why I believe those things. And I trust myself to say and do what I believe to be right. So what do I have to fear? The fear dissolves when you have that kind of alignment. And as an example to yourself, not to put pressure on you, you've been speaking with me for 45 minutes flawlessly, like it's a skill that you've had your whole life. From being the young woman that's like, I don't think I'm very articulate. I can't speak in a complex way. I'm going to make mistakes. You have been crushing a dialogue on a podcast, and it's what, 6 months later? One of the things you said about reaching higher that I really think is the secret to it is you see the shared suffering. You see other people are in pain too. Instead of just looking at them on the surface and like casting judgment, which, like you said, that's the norm. That's what most people do. It's not even judgment. It's like pattern recognition. Like you see patterns of behavior and you create a story based off that. You're like, oh, if they're doing this, they must be that. No. Maybe they're good kids that have a horrible home life, that are terribly misguided, that were abused, that have all kind of madness and darkness in their life that you have no idea of. And when you witness that in other people and you relate to your own pain and sadness or difficulties or darkness, you just see the world through a more beautiful lens because you're like willing to extend them grace. You're like, hey, you're struggling. And if you're trying to be better and you're trying to get your life in order, like I respect that. Like I almost don't care what level people are in their current capacity. What I care about are their intentions and their aim. And if they're aiming to be better people for the world, for their community, for their families, that's amazing. If you're aiming up and you can genuinely look at your own shortcomings and you're trying to be like, I want to be better than I currently am. I want to be a good man or a good woman. I want to serve a purpose and I want to matter and have people love and value me. Man, that's like the most noble pursuit ever because there's a million roads right in front of you at all times telling you to cheat and lie and steal and, be cutthroat. And that stuff's everywhere. So if you choose to be a good person in this life, how can I not respect you? I really think it's the shared suffering, the way that you just said that, like you saw other people are in pain too. And then the good part of you was like, you know what? I care about those people. If they're suffering, like I remember you cried so many times in class. It was crazy. We should have just kept a box of tissues. You know what I mean? Not to put you on the spot, but you really did because you could see the empathy that you had for others because you know what that's like. You know what it's like to hold extreme expectations of yourself or not feel good enough or not be proud enough of your body or your mind or whatever it is. You know what that feels like. Do you think it was the shared suffering?
Yeah, I thought it was crazy. Like I still can't get over like how I didn't know these people like at all. Like I had no idea like their stories and like I think it's crazy how they were so comfortable to share those stories with like complete strangers. And like none of us are the same, but in a way we are because everyone is going through something even though it's not the same thing. Everyone is struggling. Everyone like has a different story to tell. So I think like reaching higher, like that was something that opened up, I think, for everyone, is that you're not alone and you're not the only one that goes through something and that other people know what it's like to be in your shoes. Yeah.
So we went through that 8-week program and it's like every kid in that class made progress. The mentors saw it, the instructors saw it, like you guys saw it. Like everybody created bonds there and they valued each other more and they became more than what they were before they started that class. But then all of a sudden the program ends. We have graduation, reaching higher ends. You go back to the normal school routine. What are the lessons that stayed with you or the things that you still hold as valuable? And do you think school should maybe consider something like an ongoing program like that? Because memorizing historical facts, working on like all these different classes, so much of this is not preparing you for life. What actually prepares you for life is teaching you how to get your mind in order so that you can be the person that shows up as present as possible, that can interpret the difficulties of life and make the best decisions. Reaching Higher or programs like it, they provide that type of guidance. And it's like when I get done, every time we have a graduation, I just had my second group of kids from Brighton High School and we had the graduation. And it really made me think back to you guys. And I'm like, these programs shouldn't be so short-lived. You shouldn't give these kids this little fire in their life or this little spark and then be like, all right, you had 8 weeks of one session a week. Good luck. Schools, in my opinion, should implement programs like this for children to know that they're not alone and know that other people are struggling and really prepare them for what life has in store. What do you think about that? Reaching Higher ended. What are the lessons that stayed with you? What were the things that were difficult? And do you think this is something that schools should literally integrate for a healthier society?
Something that really stayed with me was something that you always said was about how you are going to be the only person to become the best version of yourself. Like, you're going to be the only person to make yourself be the best person you can be. And you always said that, like, when we had, like, the stress day and we talked about stress, you always said that stress is good, but it's the way you take in stress and it's the way you deal with it. And I think those were always something that really stuck with me for Reaching Higher. And also going back with, like, history and English and science, like, yeah, those are classes you should take, but you take them 4 years in a row. And, like, they're not that much different from what you take the year before. Like, freshman year science versus, like, junior year science, they were not that much different. And I feel like, yes, like, depending on what you go to college for, those are important skills to have. But I think the skills that Reaching Higher taught you are skills that are going to actually get you through life and get you to the point in life you want to be. Because Reaching Higher skills are skills that you mentally need and skills that will help you push to be the best version that you can be. But the classes you take in high school are classes that just don't do anything unless you're going to go into something in college with that. And
No, you made a great statement. You made a great statement. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, like, these are the skills that allow you to be healthy, in your mind, in your life. And if you're doing your best, thinking your best, operating your best, being able to make goals and handle stress and, work on your communication ability, and that is going to pay dividends in every single thing that you do. Like, so what if you have knowledge, but you can't articulate it? So what if you know historical fact, but you can't sit in a stressful environment in the job interview of your dreams and portray who you are to the other person? The doors are going to get closed in your face that are meant to be opened. So you're about to open a brand new chapter. You're about to go to college. You're about to go to, Grand Valley State University. I'm sure there's tons of stress with that. What are your expectations? When do you start? What do you think, this next journey is going to be like for you? How is the Janelle that, is going into this experience different and prepared for college than like the girl that was strolling into high school? Is just like you said, more of a single identity gymnast. Where's your confidence level? Are you ready to take on this next challenge? You feel really good about it. You're excited for the next road. Are you more fearful, etc.?
So I start college in late August, and honestly, I am not scared at all. And
I was hoping you were going to say that.
And even though, like, I'm going to be 2.5 hours away, that's still not too far that I can't come home. And I'm also rooming with one of my best friends. And four of my other best friends are also going to Grand Valley. So we're all like, it's going to feel like home because they're there. And I think a big part of me being able to be ready for college is my confidence level. Like when I was a freshman, I was this tiny girl, like, I got to get through high school with these big kids. Like, what am I going to do? And now I'm still not big at all, but I kind of, like, know what I want in life and the person, like, I want to be in life. So I think that makes me confident enough to be ready for college and be ready for the road that is after college.
I got something to say. Just because you're not physically imposing and you're not a big person, that doesn't mean you can't show up with a massive spirit. Some of the most vibrant, radiant, powerful people I know are not physically large individuals, but they're powerful people because of the spirit, energy, confidence. They just radiate a different, force about them. So even though you have physical size limitations, you need to realize if you really put yourself in order and you maximize your confidence and you show the world who you are and you don't let it push you around and you create healthy boundaries and you show up as the fullness of yourself, you're going to be intimidating to a lot of people because of that presence. Like I don't have to really tell people I'm a professional fighter. The environments that I show up in, people just feel the energy. Like people don't think like, oh, that's the guy that I should just mess with. So it's not just your physical presence. You ever hear the Shakespeare quote that, like, although she be little, she is fierce.
Mm-hmm.
Although she be but little, she is fierce.
Mm-hmm.
Forget your physical presence. If you show up with your confidence in alignment, your morality in alignment, you and your girls are about to take on the world, and like you temper that with morality and being the best version of yourself possible, you can make a tremendous impact. The most powerful person in the room can sometimes be the physically smallest because power isn't just from physical attributes. It's from impact. It's from influence. It's from the leadership qualities that you have. People will want to follow you because of who you are, not because of how you look. Some people might follow you because of how you look. Like if they're just following you on the surface, maybe they might, like you said at the very beginning of the story, you were like, I looked up to some of those senior girls and like, oh, they're so pretty. Yeah, if you're looking on just the surface, but what you want to find in life is people with depth. You want to find people with extreme character. You want to find people that in their good times and their bad times, they've shown to be stand-up people that would be there for you, that would be there for their friends, that would be there for their family. Like that's what you want to put your life around. And you got to keep a clear lens. Like when you go to college, for as much beauty as there is, there's a lot of chaos out there and there's a lot of darkness in the world. And there's a lot of people that will try to damage you in any way they can. And like you got to don't let that confidence turn to blind arrogance where you're like, I can handle any, you can, but you can also identify and avoid a lot of chaos. So I don't know if you realize this, but we have spoken straight for an hour. We've done 1 hour of dialogue like it was nothing. Like we've known each other forever. Just anything else you'd like to say on the podcast, anything about the college venture ahead, anything about, just thanks to friends, family, just anything else you'd like to capture in this moment in time. And then, we'll wrap this thing up. And then maybe, 4 or 5 years down the road, hopefully you're living an incredible life. You create a story that's worthwhile to you. I'd love to catch up and see, if you made it happen. So just anything else you'd like to put on here, and then, we'll wrap this up.
I would definitely like to give a big thanks to my family. And my mom has always been like the person that I can talk to and the person that I know will always push me in the right direction. And same with my dad, but like it's kind of hard like when it's like girl and girl, but I definitely think my parents are my biggest role model, and my dad is the hardest worker I know. He works from home every day, gets up at 6:30 when I go to school, gets done working around 5 or 6 every day. Like, he works his ass off 24/7. And so I would definitely need to thank my parents for, like, the person I am. And 100% my coaches for pushing me to be the best version I can of myself, because without them, I definitely wouldn't be the person I am. And my friends, for sure, because, you know, just they're my best
Squad.
friends. Yeah, they're my best friends. And anytime I'm having a hard time, I know that I can go to them. And I also know that they never push me in the wrong direction. They always push me to keep going forward. And for college, I am just excited. I am so excited for the future. I do believe that I am going to become the person that I want to be, 100%.
Well, that is the perfect way to wrap up this podcast. And the last thing I'm going to speak on is earlier in this podcast, you said something that has not left my mind the whole time I've been sitting here thinking about it, is you said so much of what you see on Instagram or on social media, it's not real. That is not the reality. And it's like, I know that inherently when I look at those photos or videos or just the presentation of someone's life. Like, you're seeing highlights. Mm-hmm. You're seeing the most perfect perspective that they can paint. And some of them they live lives that are very close to the reality that they show you. And some people live lives that, are a fragment of what they portray. And that made me think, like, what a weird world it is to grow up in, where you have to decipher what is real. Like, it's not, that was something that has never crossed my brain when I was young. If I witnessed events or pictures or videos, maybe because like the editing wasn't extreme, and even CGI back in the day would probably look like a third grader tried to put together a cartoon. Like, you didn't question what was real. Like, you knew things, they were more black and white. Now it's almost like you have to look at the world through a lens of everything that you consume. Is this real? That is something that I plan to meditate on that thought. But like, really, I guess the only thing you can do is you can learn to trust yourself fully and learn who you are, learn what you want out of life, learn what you value and the people that you value, and just like trust that and follow that path. And know that the sun is going to rise tomorrow no matter what, like you said, and that a lot of people are struggling. But, like, it's a crazy world you're growing up in, and hopefully it doesn't get crazier in the next few years.
Yeah.
2024 election, I guarantee you, I've been saying to all my friends, I'm like, listen, it is going to be a literal shit show. Like every 4 years, things get turned completely upside down. And like all of us, monkeys at the bottom haven't figured out that, like, guys, the circus comes in town once every 4 years. Don't go to it. Like, we don't need to participate in this madness. I guarantee you 2024, you and I are going to be laughing. We're going to be watching this episode in 2024 and laughing about, like, yeah, it's a circus. But anyway, Janelle, it was a pleasure to sit and talk with you today. I wish you the best in your future endeavors. And I want you to know that, like, can you imagine if we could take this episode, imagine the finished version of this, and we could take it back to the Janelle that first walked in that classroom and said, this is you on a podcast, eloquently speaking, telling your story, dropping insight and perspective. This is you on the other side of fear.
I'd probably cry.
You probably. I'll take that bet all day. You cry every single time.
I know.
But 100%, like, don't ever forget that lesson, that on the other side of things that seem scary or seem difficult is probably who you want to become. Don't willingly walk into danger, but find the things that matter to you and go for them. So thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll wrap this up.
Thank you.